budget work session. Let's go ahead and start with just a quick round of introductions. I didn't do that last time. Ted Wheeler, Mayor. Why don't we go your way, Renee?
Commissioner Renee Gonzalez.
Lillian Nguyen, City Budget Office.
Tim Grew, Budget Office.
Ruth Levine, City Budget Office.
Mengus Maps, Portland City Council.
Carmen Rubio.
All right, and last week's budget work session set the stage for the fiscal year 24-25 budget process. It provided a shared foundation of knowledge about the city's financial state and beginning a crucial shift in budgeting with more of a citywide lens. Today's work session is going to focus on the city's transition to outcomes-based budgeting. It's an approach that clarifies our goals and better ensures that all service area budgets support city priorities. We'll dedicate some time to review and discuss the results of the budget prioritization survey the Budget Office asked council offices to complete last week. Thank you all for taking the time to complete that survey. As we view the data today from that survey, it's important to remember that all of the approaches we considered reflect incredibly important and meaningful work within the city. The ranking does not reflect the importance of the work. It provides us with an opportunity to share where we feel resources are most impactful as we budget in a fiscally constrained environment. With that, I'll turn this over to City Budget Office Director Tim Grew to kick us off. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. As the Mayor just summarized, the City Budget Office is going to provide you with information on our efforts to move toward a outcomes-based budgeting system, an effort that has been under development by the CBO in past budget processes. We also will review the findings of the survey, as mentioned by the Mayor. You completed last week, and we thank you for doing that. Finally, we will also discuss next steps in the budget process. Next slide.
What's the deal with the box?
There we go.
Which box? Right here.
I think one more.
Oh, I don't know. Tim, what's the box for?
Should we be afraid of the box?
Don't know.
We know nothing about this box.
Yeah, don't let the mayor do that.
You're making me a little scared of the box.
Yeah.
It looked like miniature yoga mats.
Thank you for doing that, Mr. Mayor.
Unfortunately, it was disappointing.
I'll take disappointment.
So the goals of the session are to facilitate council discussion of the strategic goals and measurable outcomes for the 24-25 budget process, which will likely be one with challenging financial issues, including not just PBOT and BDS, but we also are expecting there to be challenges for the general fund as well. Another goal is to provide better outcome guidance for the development of the budget using service areas. And finally, to provide a forum for the council to have a conversation on priorities for city services. I will now turn this over to Ruth, who recently was the CBO Performance Manager and is now serving as the Assistant Budget Director. Ruth?
All right, thanks. Okay, next slide. Okay, and for the record, my name is Ruth Levine. I'm the Assistant Budget Director. Okay, so we wanted to put today's work session in the context of changes that have been happening and continue to happen in the budget process over the past several years and then going forward into the new form of government. As part of the shift toward a more enterprise approach to budgeting in the city, we've started with the direction of Mayor and Council to do more coordinated financial planning, which is the box on the left. And that more or less represents the work session we had last Tuesday, where we came with financial information for the general fund and then for our large non-general funds. And then for the second box is sort of clarifying the budget goals so that the service areas can align their budgets with the citywide goals. And that's today's work session. And then as we go through this year's budget process, we'll continue these efforts with more collaborative budget development through both service area budgets that sort of balance priorities across the bureaus, and then more consistency in the budget development process, which Tim will talk a little bit more about the rest of the budget development process at the end of the day today, and we'll continue to sort of elaborate on this as we go. Obviously, this is a transitional year, so we're testing out a bunch of new things. And then on the far right is sort of the movement towards more centralized decision-making. So for this year, the mayor will provide guidance to the service areas, as he always does through budget guidance. And then the commissioners will work within their service areas to develop proposals that meet guidance. And then the mayor and the service areas will work together to balance across all the service areas in the proposed budget. And then obviously as we go into the new form of government, this will continue to evolve with the introduction of the interim city administrator and then the deputy city administrators, and we'll continue to work on the budget process to kind of move toward a more centralized approach. Next slide. Okay. So this is sort of diving in on the connecting the budget to citywide priorities piece of this, which is why we're here today. So the question is, why are we doing this? What's the point of doing this? And I think the general idea is to kind of embed more of a logic model into the budget process. And so that's that circle that you see in the middle. There's a lot of different versions of a circle that look like this. But the basic idea is try to define your goals. What are we trying to achieve? Think about how you could achieve it. In the case of a budget where you're constrained, you have to think about what are the trade-offs between the different options, and then look at how well did we do. And so the boxes on the outside of that are kind of the ways in which this approach will help us do this. So first, today, we're trying to clearly state the outcomes that the city is expecting from its investments. And then the bureaus will go develop budget proposals that support those goals. And we will collectively support you, CBO, and the service areas will collectively support decision makers to balance the budget. And then as part of this, and part of the work that Lillian and I have done is help bureaus identify performance measures to better track their progress against the goals. So these are the high-level sort of steps of outcome-based budgeting. The first, again, is to work from a strategic plan to identify goals and targets. We'll note sort of one of the caveats for today is we recognize the city does not have kind of an official strategic plan, or not since the Portland plan, and certainly the service areas do not have their own deep service area goals as connected to a citywide strategic plan. So we're kind of piloting this, and it's an initial approach because we don't have the full thing ready to go. Obviously, that would be too much for a 2-hour work session. So we're doing what we can with what we've got. And then the next step is to connect proposals to outcomes. Again, we'll kind of talk more about this as we roll out the budget process. And then the third is to use data and research to review and balance proposals. So that's both kind of retrospectively looking at what we've done in the past and how well it might have worked. And then prospectively, as you're kind of weighing different options, how do we think about what the research is about how likely those options are to help you achieve your goals. Okay, so again, want to situate this in the context of how we've been changing our budget process over the last 4 years. So in fiscal year 1920 was the introduction of program offer budgeting, and that was part of the goal of that was to be able to better describe what the city does with its investments. And then over the subsequent few years, we have been refining program offer budgeting and doing things that included better assigning resources to each program offer so you can better understand what supports each program in terms of revenues, and then and staff and the like, and then also to assign performance measures to program offers so that bureaus can try to describe what we're getting essentially for what we're buying. And that's been sort of an evolution and continues to be an evolution. Last fiscal year for 23-24, the budget guidance had asked bureaus to tag their program offers to the priority areas and lenses. And what we're doing today is trying to put a little bit more specificity around those priority areas so that bureaus can better understand how what they're doing connects to them. Next slide. Okay, now I'm going to pass it to Lillian.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Lillian Nguyen with the City Budget Office. I use she, her pronouns. So as part of the annual budget development process for the 24-25 fiscal year, we are piloting an outcomes-based budget goal-setting process. The basis for this goal-setting process is a council budget priorities survey. The City Budget Office distributed this anonymous survey to the 4 commissioners' offices and mayor's office, asking each to rank goal statements within the council priority issues or priority lenses. These issues and lenses are listed on this slide and presented later in alphabetical order. Today, we will be discussing the results of the survey. We had several aims for the survey, including beginning a conversation about how council wants to prioritize resources, moving the city toward budgets driven by a citywide strategic plan, focusing the budget conversation on desired outcomes, refining the approach for supporting each council priority area, and weighing the goals of programs in a budget-constrained environment in alignment with council priorities. In the survey, we presented council with a list of budget priority goal statements to rank. These were derived from the Portland Plan, from a review of standard measures for peer cities, as well as from other citywide strategic plans, such as the Climate Action Plan or Vision Zero, et cetera. These goal statements are broad and generalized, such as improve emergency services response time. After this work session, CBO will work to develop specific outcome measures for the top budget goal statements identified by council. This approach is intended to encourage a discussion on the results council wants to prioritize rather than the technicalities of data and measurement. So, on the screen is an example of how this process could work. If we assume that a top priority goal statement is increase the percent of Portlanders who feel safe while walking alone in their neighborhoods, we can then identify a data source and specific outcome measure tied to that goal statement. In this example, we would likely use percent of Portlanders who agree or strongly agree with feeling safe walking alone in their neighborhood during the day and at night, disaggregated by geography. A budget proposal that would align with this outcome could be to shift resources for safety-related programs to neighborhoods that report having low feelings of safety. So before delving into the results of the survey, we wanted to take a few minutes to walk you through how to interpret the results in diagrams. To start, for each priority area or lens, council was provided with a randomized list of options or goal statements in the survey. This means that each council member saw the options in a different order. In our example here, we have a randomized list of native plants. For each priority issue or lens, we will be displaying the results as a diagram that shows council rankings of the goal statements. Each priority issue or lens had anywhere between 5 to 8 options that could be ranked. The table on the left shows the potential spectrum of colors in the diagram. On the right, you can see that the warmer colors represent a ranking in the top half, indicating a higher priority, whereas the cooler colors represent a ranking in the bottom half, indicating a lower priority. Anything tending grayer in color is in the middle of the ranking. So this slide mimics the survey results slides that you will see shortly. On the left-hand side is a table with the options ordered by their overall combined weighted rankings. On the right-hand side is a diagram showing anonymously how the commissioners and mayor ranked the option. Each rectangle in the diagram represents a single ranking by a commissioner or the mayor. There are 5 total rankings per option. In this example, the diagram would show that Thimbleberry was ranked first for 3 offices, but second to last for 2 offices. Snowberry, meanwhile, was second choice for 1 office, third for another office, but last for 3 offices. Finally, we wanted to contextualize the results. In answering the survey, council was asked to consider these guiding questions when determining their rankings. What outcomes do you most want to see as a result of the city's services? As bureaus are developing their budgets, how can they best understand the definitions of council priorities? And finally, if bureaus are trading off the funding for 2 programs, how should they weigh the respective goals of those programs in terms of alignment with council priorities? We did want to note that low overall rankings do not necessarily reflect the importance of the goal or approach considered. A lower ranking could indicate that it's an issue of timeliness. Council may not need to invest more resources into this approach right now. It could indicate that there may be more pressing needs for the community at this time, or that the options are highly intertwined, that investment in one approach may directly or indirectly improve or impact another approach. And I'll hand it back to Ruth to discuss the survey outcomes by priority area.
All right. Oh, go
Are
ahead.
there any questions or comments?
Just a comment maybe for the parking lot for next year. A lot of people are colorblind. And so
All right.
maybe if we could figure out a numerical system to imprint
Yeah.
over it for next year, that might
Yeah.
be.
Make it
Sure.
I didn't
easier to
even think
read.
about this the other day.
Yeah,
so
no, that's a good point.
I apologize for
We'll do that.
springing it on you.
Okay, so before we kick it off, the next section of this is really going to be discussion driven for you all. So we're going to go through each one, and then we'll stop for discussion on each topic. We have 5 to 7 minutes for each topic. And so we have some discussion questions here for you to think about, and I'll be facilitating. So the first, we'd love to hear just for each one, kind of what did you think about as you were ranking, or what did you talk about with staff as you were ranking the options for each priority area? What was hard, what raised questions? Like, we fully recognize this is not a sort of cut and dry exercise. There's a lot of gray areas here, and that's part of the point. Does anything about the results surprise you? Does anything hearing from your colleagues, does anything, change your thinking at all? And then we have for each one, we have a slide about the insights survey data that was relevant to the items that we included. Not all of the items have a question that corresponds to them in the insights survey, but we have those in the slide so we can talk about those and see if that is interesting at all. And then, in thinking about strategies, again, this is not supposed to be a fully baked strategic plan, so we don't need to go down deep into the strategies, but is there anything that kind of stands out to you as kind of critical pathways for achieving the goals? Questions before we, yeah?
So I have a question. So most of these choices all came from the Portland plan, or where was the origination of a lot of these choices?
Lillian, do you want to speak to it?
Sure. We started with the Portland plan as a base, but tried to find updated data sources. So some Portland plan, some from a review of peer cities, cities around the same size as Portland, and finally other citywide strategic plans, such as the Climate Action Plan.
Okay. Just offering some, again, parking lot for next year. I think for me, contextualizing where it came from would have been really helpful, because we searched a little bit and saw Portland plan reference, but that was, I think, 2012.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of development along issue areas since that time, which made some of the ranking challenging for me.
For sure.
And my team, because some things have moved or we weren't quite sure where it came from. So just for future.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was really helpful. So I need to ask this question.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking at now with the results, it's a combination of everything that Commissioner Rubio and you mentioned. It's not just the 5 of us.
Oh, no, sorry. So the results are just the 5.
Okay.
Just the 5
reason
results.
my brain went to thinking it was-
And maybe just go to the next
Got
slide
it.
so we can show an example.
So the
So
questions-
the statements where it says option on here are correspond to measures or goals that are either in the Portland plan or came from, we got a consulting review of just this, of kind of statements around each of the priority areas and how do peer cities, like if you look at many cities, they have kind of a scorecard with, climate mitigation and resilience, and then they have 5 data points. We're obviously not there yet. That's a collective exercise that we have to do. But just for the purposes of putting something on paper, we kind of took a combination of the Portland plan, that consultant report that we got last summer, and then other climate action plans or other things we could point to that said, here's the reason for this particular thing. And then we took those measures and we turn them into goal statements so that you could rank the goal, if that makes sense.
It does. That's where you got your questions
Yes,
from the intelligence
exactly.
of all of that.
Yep.
These are the results of
These
our
are the
responses.
results. That's right.
Wanted to make clear.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we dive in? Okay. So this is climate mitigation and resilience. It takes a little practice to read these. The ones that are listed on the top are the ones that scored, kind of algorithmically scored the highest. And then the colors just show you the dispersion of your responses. So in this one, 3 offices put increased neighborhood support for emergency resilience first. Another office put it second, and another office put it fourth. So that's kind of just how to read that. I mean, I think you'll see as we go through this one, there was kind of more alignment, I would say. The responses were more tight, and that most of you, that you focused on the kind of resilience piece of this. So I think my question for you is, does anyone want to talk about how you thought about kind of mitigation versus resilience for this question, and how you thought through your rankings? I should note, the responses are honestly anonymous. I genuinely do not know who responded in what way. If you'd like to speak to how you ranked specific ones, obviously you're welcome to. It was just to facilitate the exercise that we did it anonymously.
Too many seniors in East Portland died in the last heat dome. Too many of our Portland children are in classrooms that are too hot and too cold in the seasons. I'm in public safety, but this is what keeps me up at night. Extreme weather events and how our community is going to be able to respond, much less substantial underinvestment in seismic mitigation, both in terms of city infrastructure and communal infrastructure. So near and dear to my heart, and a significant issue for our community. Not shocked at all by those rankings.
I agree. I think the commissioner got it exactly right. There's immediacy in terms of life or death scenarios versus important work that we need to keep doing over the long term.
Okay. I think some of the other sort of questions here, are there particular strategies that you want to focus on on that top goal area? I guess one question is the way we framed that goal, again, because this is what we had sort of a source data for it, was increased neighborhood supports for emergency resilience. Are you focused on the kind of neighborhood supports support piece of that, or more on the emergency resilience piece? And are there key strategies that you think that either in your service areas or just generally in the city that you are focused on around either the neighborhood supports or the emergency resilience? Yeah.
So I was thinking about Portland Solutions and how that could roll out and potentially address issues at the neighborhood level. You know, it's based on the 90-day resets that we did in a couple of specific locations, but Portland Solutions will be a broader approach. And so I think of it in part from that. And I also think about what Commissioner Gonzalez said, just in terms of rapidly identifying and immediately addressing life safety threats beyond the first responder system. And there's a lot of things that we could be doing in that arena as well. And it could be planting more trees. It could be better networks, neighborhood emergency team networks. It could be improved infrastructure around drainage. There's a lot of different things that we could do in that arena.
Great.
Yeah, I was at those meetings across the city, and watching neighbors, their jaws would drop when statements were made about when there is an emergency, who's going to help you out, and it's going to be a neighbor. And so building resiliency within neighborhoods is obviously a very common sense response. And so I'm not surprised this is at the top.
Okay.
And I will say in each neighborhood we were at, I was at all of them, the response was very supportive of that statement. And your team did a very good job, Commissioner Gonzalez, explaining that.
Great. Lillian, do you want to pull up the insights slide that's next on this? Talk through that.
Sure. So on the left-hand side here, we have two pie charts that relate to Commissioner Ryan's comment. So we asked Portlanders if in severe weather there was someone they would check on, and a little over half, so 63%, said yes, whereas about half said they were sure someone would check on them. And this is a data point that we will likely collect in future insight surveys and be able to track kind of the community resilience over time. And the chart on the right is related to the last data point. We asked Portlanders what mode of transport they would be interested in using more if it was affordable and safe. And we see that the top three options were ride public transit, bike, and drive.
Any other thoughts before we move on to the next area based on these graphs? Or anything else? All right, we can move on. Okay, so the next in alphabetical order is community safety. Again, there was a fair amount of agreement on this one, with three ranking improve emergency services response time as the top. Any thoughts on this one about how you went about the process of ranking them, and then any thoughts based on seeing the responses here?
Well, the obvious is that we're in sharp agreement about what the priorities should be here. We're very, very closely aligned as a council.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little surprised that improving Portlanders' perceptions of safety in their neighborhoods isn't higher, based on the last slide and based on dialogue earlier. I think most Portlanders, when they're surveyed right now, they don't think they feel that safe. So I was surprised that one wasn't higher.
Commissioner, I think this is an interesting question on public safety and just the perception of the city. Overused metaphor, but it's hard to put lipstick on a pig, right? And I think the underlying facts right now, specifically in response time, when you go back 2018 to 2023, that time period, across the board, our first responders are much slower than they were in 2018. And there are a multitude of factors, primarily volume, staffing in certain of our public safety bureaus. That's just our reality. I mean, it takes police almost 3 times as long to respond to a high demand incident right now than it did 4 years ago, from about 8 minutes to roughly 23 minutes. 911 wait times, while they are going down this year, are still dramatically higher than they were in 2018. And so those are the facts. I think it also leads to real perceptions of Portlanders about declining public safety, but it's hard to address the perception if we don't address the underlying.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I put improved emergency response time number 1. I'm saying that your average Portlander would, like what I hear when I'm out in all these neighborhood meetings, number 6, and also reduction of property crime. That's what comes up the most. That's what they're experiencing on a daily basis. When you're seeing that Portlanders aren't that happy or they're leaving the city, it's that type of dialogue that I hear. So I guess I put my brain a lot in what I'm hearing from residents. And that's why I'm surprised that one isn't higher either.
I think for me, sort of getting at both of your points, it was hard for me to reconcile ranking perception higher than the actual outcome. So I'd love to understand your thinking about putting those two choices,
sure.
because I feel they're tied, but they're different.
Totally, yeah.
So the last option there came from the Insight survey. And the Insight survey had a fairly expansive definition of safety that went beyond avoiding physical harm. So we described it as community safety means having a sense of belonging and peace. It means not being worried that someone will harm me, for example, stealing my phone, intimidating me, hurting me because of my race, ethnicity, disability, et cetera. So I think that's a slight difference between the two, but I realize that we didn't provide that context in the survey.
Can I also just suggest, I agree, by the way, with Commissioner Rubio. I think ranking perception against actual outcomes is a tough one, but perception, as we know, becomes reality in terms of the decisions people make. I also find that improving perceptions of safety is not something the city controls alone, that there are many factors that play into somebody's perception of safety here in the community. And I feel like what I was happy to see on this slide was I feel that the city council stayed in its lane in terms of tangible things that we can actually do that are within our span of control that would ultimately have a positive impact on Portlanders' perception of safety.
If I can build off of this, again, I think the most interesting thing in this slide is the responses on 1 and 6. When I look at the slide, I go, okay, there are 3 solid votes on this council to improve emergency services response times. On the other hand, the lowest ranked one is improve Portlanders' perceptions of safety in their neighborhoods. I'm sure that's important to everybody on this council. It's interesting that it ranked relatively low. One of the other things that jumps out to me is I believe if you take a look at the performance metrics that probably the police bureau, and I suspect our crime prevention program, or what I think of as our crime prevention program, like one of our top 2 metrics there is, I believe, improving perceptions of safety. At least I think in the public safety community, perceptions of safety is an important concept. So this might be a space that we want to dig into and think about as we put together this budget.
Yeah, this is a good conversation. I think under community safety, what surprised me is, and I know this is under public health, which we didn't have that category, correct, is the poisonous drug crisis that's impacting our city in ways that I find most politicians still barely have the political will to talk about the truth. It's, and it wasn't mentioned in here, and yet that's a root cause of so much of what we're seeing, especially property crimes and even the violent crimes. So I think without having that, at least we need to lift it up as a part of the dialogue. And that's where we have to partner with the county, which is half of community safety, which I think a lot of Portlanders don't understand. So,
And I do think number one, too, to buttress your point, the drug crisis underlies number 5, property crimes, but
that's probably why I put it so high in
it
my,
has a dramatic impact on response times right now.
my
Yeah.
neighbors, that's what they're experiencing, is weekly getting something stolen on their property.
Yeah, I mean, one question I was going to ask, and feel free to not answer if this puts you on the spot, but I mean, I think when people, think about emergency services response time, they think about, police and fire, 911, but are there places where you see that other bureaus, other service areas contribute to this as well, and that there's kind of like a one city response to this particular goal at the, for number one?
I have a good anecdote for Peabot. Sure. We had a major tree fall in the park across the street on Sunday. I think police was out there within an hour, and then they dispatched Peabot. Peabot cleared the street within probably an hour and a half of a major tree falling on an intersection, quiet street, fortunately, but it was incredible response time, frankly, in many respects. And it was a hazard, literally stopped a street from being passable. It was successful. It was a good day for our response, and Peabot was absolutely part of that story. So I do think there's times where it extends outside your core responders.
Thank you, and if I could, I'll return the favor and tell a story from Commissioner Gonzalez's portfolio. I used to have BOIC, and especially during my time at BOIC, one of the top concerns in the city was how long it took our 911 operators to pick up the phone. Got a lot of criticism about that. Obviously, that concern remains. But I think in my observation of kind of managing that particular portfolio, I do think that Portlanders tend to conflate how long it takes 911 to pick up the phone versus how long it takes the fire truck or the police squad car or Portland Street response to show up. So as we move forward and think about outcomes, I think it's still important to really think about systems, and indeed probably part of this exercise today is to get us to think about systems. But I also want to point out that as we move from a program-based approach to budgeting to an outcome approach to budgeting, these kind of high-level discussions can also take us away from the systems-level discussions where we think about the handoffs between our 911 operators and the fire truck showing up at the grass fire underneath the bridge.
Yeah, and I'll build on that theme as well. Think about PMO, the Environmental Management Office. Litter and graffiti generate a lot of calls to City Hall, and when people see a lot of litter and a lot of graffiti in their neighborhood, it gives them a sense that there is not control, that there is somehow something spinning out of control, that it's dystopic, that it feeds this perception that, well, if the city can't keep the graffiti and the litter off the walls and off the sidewalks, then what does that say about their ability to address serious criminal activity? And so, again, I think when it comes to community safety, it's all heavily intertwined with all of our bureaus. I can't think of a single bureau that doesn't have some overlay with public safety or community safety.
I think there's burden and impact on all. I do think when we built the SSCC, which really came from the work we were doing in homelessness, in that response, you start to see the more honest collection of who's focused on community safety. And so I would say that we look at those SSCC, is that the right acronym? Great.
Street Services Coordination
State Services Coordination Center. And so I think looking at a system that we organically built in response is a really wise way to also look at the bigger picture of public safety.
Yeah, definitely.
Grow where you're planted, definitely.
Okay, so we're gonna switch over to economic recovery. And so this one had a little bit more dispersion, I would say, so I'm interested in your thoughts. I don't know if anyone wants to speak to, I know, again, sort of there's a lot of gray area in all of these, so totally recognize that. But on what sort of came up as number one, the increased workforce and quality jobs. I know there's kind of a few different pieces of that. So if anyone wants to speak to how they thought about that as a goal and what that kind of meant to you when you were going through this.
I want to throw a curveball out here.
All right.
Missing from this list is improving public's perception about public safety in their community. I mean, even the different areas are linked.
Yeah, good point. I did mean to ask, if there are specific things on any of these that you feel like we're missing, please let us know and we can make notes of that too. So, thank you.
Well, I mean, economic recovery, so there's so many factors in some respects, right? And so your list here is reasonable and plausible, but there's probably 5 other things that could have been asked here: total tax burden, cost of doing business. I wrestled with the permitting one because it's uber important and it has a lot of focus right now, not just in the city and state, but at the end of the day, it's part of a bigger question. How long does it take to get housing and other projects developed in the city? Permitting is one component of it, both the time and cost, but it's in furtherance to something else, right? It's not an end in itself. So I wrestled with how to rank it, given that. This is actually one that city reputation I might lean in more on because we have to attract capital. Tourism revenue is not just important to the city coffers, but it's somewhat important to the city spirit and self-identity. So it's I don't know. There's actually a lot here. I wrestled probably hard the most with this section.
Anyone else?
I think with some of these, it was, at least from my lens, I kept thinking about what's our control and what's our influence. What's the lane that the city influences this work area? And so for me, it was really easy to lift up permitting because we absolutely have control over that.
Great. Lillian, do you want to bring up the insights question here?
Sure. So we had a question on if people were able to find a job that pays enough to support themselves or their families. And about half, 48%, agreed or strongly agreed that they could, whereas 27% disagreed or strongly disagreed.
So I don't know if that is, speaks to anybody in terms of how it obviously corresponds to what came out as number one, which is increased workforce in quality jobs. I mean, I think that one of the interesting pieces of that is that there's kind of two sides to that. It's both the job being there and the worker being able to be in the job. So, I don't know if anyone wanted to, if that sparks a thought for anyone.
Well, that's just an example. I was in the education space for a long time, and the education space has a lot of control and influence on how to equip people by age 25 to be economically mobile. That is their focus. And so if I was back on a school board, I would rank that as number one. Here, I would rank that as number one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like we have these different government entities, and we've got to stay in our lane and focus and have impact.
All right, next up is equity. So again, the answers here are more distributed, and that personally didn't surprise me because equity crosses a lot of different everything, obviously. So, but are there any reactions from seeing this? I think, so the first one is increase the proportion of BIPOC households in Portland above median income, but there were also, there were some first votes for 3 other choices. including improve the perception that everyone can thrive, increase Portlander satisfaction living in the city, and then the small one is strengthen outreach, public engagement for communities of color, immigrants, and refugees. Does this spark any thoughts for anyone? I think one of the interesting things around this one is the options represent both internal facing strategies and external facing strategies. And so I know, that may have made it more challenging, but I don't know how, if any of you want to comment on sort of the internal facing piece versus the external facing piece and how you thought about that.
Well, I'll just talk about the internal facing piece with regard to what we've supported in past budgets. We don't have a recruiting or hiring problem for BIPOC employees. We have a retention problem. And there's a variety of reasons why people move on. Sometimes it's very positive. Sometimes they've developed a portfolio and somebody recruits them for something bigger and better. That's good, in my opinion. What we also hear a lot is it's difficult for people if they are recruited here, they come from somewhere else, they bring their families, and their families feel disconnected from the community. And so we've tried to find ways to help our employees of color feel that they're more part of the community, not just them, but their families as well. And I think we need to keep building in that area, frankly, as our community becomes more diverse. From my perspective, that's sort of one of the internal pieces. And then this council just showing respect for our employees of color, which I feel like we do.
I might jump in here and talk about something that's missing, but is a strong focus of my office, which is equity in contracting. In the infrastructure space, we spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year building stuff. And I think one of the best ways that we can, frankly, move BIPOC households above the median income, one of the ways we can, perceive your, just increase your overall experience of being a Portlander is to have access to opportunity. This is a space that the council has leaned into, I think, both publicly and especially over the last couple of years, we've been working kind of hard behind the scenes. This is something that I think that we should hold ourselves accountable to. I would argue that the city of Portland is perhaps the largest engine of opportunity in the state of Oregon, especially if we get the contracting piece of this right, which also gets to, I think, your inward-looking versus outward-looking question. As we go about thinking about budgeting, how do equity questions kind of fit into? Well, there's a couple of versions of equity. One is, you can have programs that are specifically designed to channel resources or redistribute resources to people of color and other disadvantaged groups, or you can really focus on breaking down barriers to participation and engagement. I think Portland has a long, proud history of leaning into redistribution. I think the next chapter for our city is to really remove the barriers that prevent people who look like me from participating in the life and the work of the city.
I would also offer that, just going back to the retention question, or the statement, I 100% agree with that. I also want to offer that I do believe we still do have a hiring and promotion problem when we look vertically at how we hire here at the city and how we promote. It increasingly, gets less diverse the higher that you go, or hiring into senior level positions tend to also be incredibly less diverse. So I just want to lift that up as something to pay attention to.
And if I could build on Commissioner Rubio's at least in I think one of the things I've tried to do since I've been on this council is to engage with and support our various affinity groups. I know everyone on this council does. And I should say it out loud because it's clearly true. There's a real morale problem amongst many of our affinity groups. They feel alienated from the city. It's not been a great experience for too many of our employees in terms of in terms of the inward part of our budgeting and management processes. This is something we have to address and get better at if we're going to be a high-performing organization.
Yeah, I want to echo what was said earlier by Commissioner Mapps. The contracting is something, again, we have control and influence over, and that will definitely be prosperous for our BIPOC contractors. So I was disappointed that wasn't one of the angles on this. Back to continuous improvement where you can have impact and control. One thing I always say is I just want more ambitious people to move to Portland and to build things and to hire people. And I look at our refugees, I look at our immigrants, and those are our emerging economies. Those are the microeconomies that have a lot of potential to keep building with. And I think we need to improve the way we connect with those communities and let them feel like they're part of this city. And because of a lot of barriers, that hasn't always been the case. So I did lift that up.
I'd just like to add, it overlaps with one and a number of comments, and also overlaps with the economic recovery slide. The concept of shared economic prosperity and really expanding what that entails. I mean, contracting super important. We also have a number of trades in the region that have done a very good job of giving folks family wage jobs. We actually have very good participation. They're often more diverse than other employers in the region, and it is a part of the story of both equity and economic recovery. I think it needs to be part of that pathway, needs to be given some visibility. Now, the city's role there is a little bit somewhat narrow sometimes, other than helping to be a cheerleader for those industries that support those type of jobs. But that was how the middle class was built in the United States in many respects. That's a certain segment of, college educated requirements for really good jobs, and there's still a lot of opportunity in the region. So it kind of builds off number one on this slide and a little bit on economic recovery from my vantage point.
To build off of that, I think the city and every governmental institution in Oregon spends a lot of time thinking about the equity issue. But I think the research here is just really clear and unambiguous. If you want to increase wealth amongst any group, but it's especially true for Oregonians of color, there are two key indispensable elements that have to be addressed, which is education and home ownership. It's just couldn't be less ambiguous if you dive into the social science research on this. And the unfortunate piece here is we don't have a lot of influence as a city council over the education piece. I think there are some things that we can do here, and I think if you looked at the city from a historical perspective, there have been times when we have been more or less engaged with the school districts with, probably mixed outcomes here. We do have more influence over home ownership, and indeed, I hope that's something that we really lean in on if we're serious about the equity question. There's a difference between, how big your paycheck is and how much wealth your family has. In America, wealth comes from home ownership for the most part. And I think that key insight, while it's been acknowledged at the city, frankly, if we're serious about the equity thing, I think we'd spend a lot more time leaning into that.
Great, thank you. Let's just go to government performance next. Yeah. Okay, so this is government performance. So the top one here was the number of capital assets that meet asset condition targets. And then the second one was increased trust in the effectiveness of city government. So any reactions to this order, and any thoughts about how, anyone want to speak to how you thought about particularly the first one, the capital assets one?
Yeah, I will, as a kind of a guy who has a lot of infrastructure. Here, I think this has been a neglected space in the city. As you neglect the state of maintenance of your assets, what happens over time is you spend less and less or fewer and fewer of your resources actually delivering services because you have to close down buildings or light poles or roads or whatnot. I believe that the evidence is really clear that if you're going to achieve a high-performing government or any other institution, you really have to take asset management quite seriously. I would argue the city of Portland doesn't, and I think this is one of our many Achilles heels.
Anyone else want to speak to how they thought about this?
I like the making it easier for Portlanders to contact the city. It's Byzantine, it's complicated, it's difficult. Nobody knows who to call. Nobody knows if they're going to get a response to their call. If it doesn't go to the right place, there's not necessarily follow-up, and that just leads to a degree of cynicism about city government's effectiveness. And it's all easy to fix. I say that with a heavy grain of salt.
I see more alignment here than on some. I'd love to hear from government affairs how we're doing with leveraging the largesse of the Biden bipartisan infrastructure package. Clearly, our infrastructure is crumbling, and not just us, but the state and across the country. This is an issue. Why we finally passed something bipartisan in Washington. So I could see why that's there, and I think the top three all make sense. I agree with the mayor that the trust will go up when somebody actually answers the phone or replies to an email with an actual custom response, not a canned response. So, yeah.
If I could add one more, ranked third, maintaining the city's bond rating, that's not something that's rankable. It must be done, period. And that's where we really charge the budget office to make sure that we maintain our sterling credit rating, because it probably would have more of an impact on our budget than anything else if we lost access to that credit rating.
And that's consistent with not just our overall rating, but the ratings of the utilities and everything along those lines. We need to keep a very firm review of what's happening in those sectors.
I assume we would not approve a budget that did not maintain our credit rating.
Although, let me jump in here. My confidence that we are managing our budget in a way that's going to allow us to maintain our excellent bond rating, this is something that actually keeps me up at night. I believe that the credit rating agencies have changed the way they rank municipal governments recently, frankly, in ways that do not benefit the city of Portland. I issue a lot of bonds and through my portfolio, and I think it's, unless something changes in this, I think it's back to the asset management piece to some degree. I think we are at risk of seeing our credit rating downgraded in the near future. And if that's not the case, I'd love to have a work session that demonstrates to me why it's not.
We can certainly do that. Get our debt team together to talk to you, our bond counsel, and that sort of thing. I think could provide you with very good information on this. And I do think this is a challenge for the city right now going forward. The biggest thing that raters look for is continuity and sticking to your financial plans and collecting the revenues that you need to have. When they see those not happening, on times. That gets the concerns going, and then they do deeper analysis, and you look at that. So.
Sure, just educate me and perhaps folks watching. I get the impression that historically bonds related to public utilities have not been kind of baked into our credit rating, but maybe that has changed recently.
They have their credit ratings because they do revenue bonds.
Right.
The overall, the overall rating of the city has to do with all of the funds, and that's usually Moody's or somebody like that to come. So we've been very lucky as a city to have a very high level rating at whole, and that benefits the utilities and other organizations, not just the general fund and that sort of thing. So.
Well, great. Actually, this is frankly, before we wrap up as a council, this is one of the things I hope that we can do, even if it just educates future electeds about how our bonds work, how our credit rating works, what our risks here are. I think the mayor is absolutely right in that that rating is very important in terms of our ability to manage our assets and our cash flow and our ability to borrow money.
I'd recommend, if I could, given that we're probably going to have many financial challenges going into this next budget and probably beyond this next budget, that it might be advantage to have that work session to come in and talk about how ratings are done, where we stand, what the issues are that can affect the rating, and have that discussion as we go into the budget process.
I certainly support having a conversation like that.
I just want to point at number 6, reduce time to fill for city recruitments. While that specific item I didn't rank that high, I think it's indicative of a larger issue too that we should be tracking, and it wasn't on here, but ensuring that our HR infrastructure is strengthened and gets stronger in service to the bureaus and to the public. We've all had experiences where they're backed up because they have a lack of capacity to provide those services. So I'm curious why it didn't make it into this list, but would love to see any sort of outcomes language around that.
One last point on government performance, just listening to the comments, which I agree with for the most part, how different the internal view and the external view is on government performance. I would have never thought as number one would be so high on the list a year ago before I was a city commissioner. And then you start to get tours of city infrastructure and you start to really understand things like seismic risk and how aged our, once you see it up front, a lot of our assets, just on the external world, you would have no idea. And you care about the things the mayor alluded to. Does someone, or Commissioner Ryan alluded to as well, does someone pick up the phone when I call? Can I navigate the city bureaucracy effectively? But our infrastructure, our credit rating, our HR infrastructure, you just have a very different lens after serving than the general population. And part of, I think, when we translate that into budgeting priorities, one of the challenges is how you synthesize those two things, that the public maybe is never going to fully comprehend that just because they don't spend every day cleaning up the messes that are left by aging infrastructure and HR system that's under stress. And we haven't even gotten to bond ratings and the dire implications that has if that really went south. And it's just that, I guess that's the fundamental of government, synthesizing those two. But.
And a final comment on the performance, on the various performance metrics that you've highlighted here. Commissioner Gonzalez, you got someone for you. I feel like this is a little bit of a mixture of apples and oranges. Some of this is internal budget focused, some of this is more external. So I see how asset management, our bond rating, and spending one-time money on ongoing needs or one set of questions, and then trust in government, contracting, responsiveness, recruitment times just strikes me as being really a separate set of issues. And I would argue that these are not necessarily, or I hope these aren't intentions. I hope that I can, indeed, these are all like bond ratings, asset management, and how you spend your one-time versus ongoing resources are clearly tied together and I think complement each other, although we don't necessarily manage it that way.
Good point.
I know I mentioned it earlier, but I do think the number 4, increase equitable contracting in construction for BIPOC and women-owned businesses, I would have wanted that in the equity clump. Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right, great. We've got 2 more. We're going to move on to housing and homelessness. So this is one where, looking at it, it seemed like the kind of thing that, you might think if you do one, it impacts another one. But curious how people felt about ranking this one, and there's pretty good alignment around increasing exits from homelessness. But does anyone want to speak about any of these?
Well, the impact of homelessness on the street, both the humanitarian impact as well as the livability and safety impact, is all I hear about all day long, every day, anywhere I go. It is clearly the number 1 issue of concern to people in our city. And I think the best impact we could have on the city in terms of economic viability, in terms of safety, in terms of livability, is doing everything we can to get people off the streets and connected to services. And so I put increased exits right at the top of the list. And I realize that's not all somebody needs in order to be successful, but it's a really good start from my perspective, and it's something that the city, the community has repeatedly said overwhelmingly that they would like us to do.
I live in the same world as the mayor. Pretty much all I hear about, or certainly everywhere I go, I hear about houselessness. I see it when I exit my door or my office or take my kids to school. It has come to redefine the experience of being a Portlander. At the same time, I do think, especially in the budget space, there is this still unaddressed issue of the city's role in addressing houselessness versus, frankly, the county and the state's role. To be blunt, I think the city has essentially been bankrupting ourselves in order to address the houselessness issue. I understand why, even here at PBOT, my folks who normally would be out issuing parking tickets and bringing in revenue for the city and PBOT are now essentially houseless outreach workers. And they're, I think, some of the best houseless outreach workers in the entire Portland metro area. But this is an unsustainable approach unless the city is going to take over the houseless portfolio. But we all know the federal, the state dollars for houselessness don't flow to the city, they flow to the county. I think this is why it is just incredibly important for us to get some clarity with the county on who does what in this space. We've been sort of caught in a standoff on this for as long as I've been on this council, and frankly, the city does not. I think the county can survive with the status quo. The city hall cannot. I think every one of our bureaus is directly impacted by this, not only in terms of service delivery, but budgets. I'll point out to us that we got at least $90 million in bills coming due in the next budget that we don't have the cash for. I think this is a space where something needs to fundamentally change, and it needs to change in this next budget.
I want to, first of all, thank you for splicing this the way you have. A lot of the surveys that are done on the homeless question invariably couple affordability with homelessness. And your precise questions here actually kind of splice out in many respects, more effectively, the different elements of the broadly and imprecisely defined homeless problem. I want to echo Commissioner Mapps and Mayor Wheeler's comments on this. I mean, this is the big issue for the city of Portland, and we don't have all the tools to solve it. We're not necessarily statutorily responsible for social services, and bluntly, we're just not. But yet, we are cleaning up a failed system on multiple fronts, whether it's behavioral health. We do have responsibility to create an environment where housing can be produced in an efficient way. But in general, we're not controlling these macro factors. And yet our first responders clean up the mess. Our sidewalks, our streets, our core livability is really fundamentally undermined by the status quo here. And I think we also have to, at least in this area, talk about what we can do to be less inviting to the migratory component of this problem. I mean, there are many drivers, but that's a part of the story that we don't really like to talk about much in the city, but we bear a disproportionate burden here in the city of Portland relative to other parts of the country and other parts of the state. And it's unfair to our taxpayers. So anyways, I echo my colleagues' points on this.
You go. I'll go after you.
I want to point it, I think this graphic points to and really highlights the dysfunction that we're in. So if you take a look at this, our top priority are exits from houselessness. We got 3 solid votes for that. On the other hand, that's not what the city does. That's clearly what the county does. On the other hand, what's our lowest priority in this space? Reduce the number of rent-controlled burden households. We actually kind of own that portfolio to a significant degree, and that's our lowest priority. This is the sort of weird warping effect that we have settled into in the greater Portland metro area. Something needs to change. It's both, I think, something here on this council, and I think it's something with our county partners, and I think the state could be helpful here too. But this doesn't, if we're thinking clearly, the results that we see here don't make sense as a sign that something fundamental has gone wrong.
Well, Commissioner Mapps, I hear what you're saying, and on a good day, that'd be great, but we haven't had a lot of good days in local government lately around this issue. And so we are the first responders, and we have a lot of people on our streets that are doing very bad things, and they're harming themselves and others. We have the complex, very complex addiction crisis that is happening all across the country, but Portland's special. And so we've had to show up to look at how to actually have the audacity to deal with the exits from homelessness. The county wasn't responding, there was a void. So when I was a dotted line to the county, and well, you weren't here yet, but we got a 5-0 vote to do something. So we started building villages, and we started serving the people that the county wasn't serving. Because when they were putting some of the people into apartments, that wasn't working. They would destroy the apartments and be back out on the streets. They would go into their apartments and make women in particular not feel safe in those single occupancy units. So we have the audacity to be truthful about this crisis and invest in it because it's killing us. It's killing our livability. It's our economic drivers. Everything is on this problem, which is why the mayor started with that. So this is one that's complex to me, and I hope that we can get out of it. I hope that the collaboration with the county continues to improve. We don't need more studies from the county on some of these issues. That always puzzles me when they need to do another study when it's pretty obvious to everyone that reports on the issue even. And so I think we got this, personally, I think we got this right, and I think we're taking action. And I can't imagine that the largesse from the taxpayers for SHS funds from the Here Together won't start supporting those first responder transition housing that are showing the best promise ever to get people exiting from homelessness. And so I think that we just have to stay in the game and keep collaborating with the county on the #1 issue that's taking down it's taking down our city.
Sure. I sure appreciate that, Commissioner Ryan, and I do celebrate your leadership in bringing safe rest villages to the city. I think I voted for those proposals every time they came up. At the same time, as we learned, I think, maybe 2 weeks ago, through the course of these budget hearings, I'm about to lay off 78 people or so over at PBOT. These are folks who fill in potholes and fix your sidewalks, and I know Commissioner Rubio faces a very similar problem in the permitting space. So given the trajectory we are on, we are slowly exiting the core responsibilities of the city of Portland in order to pick up the responsibilities that Multnomah County is failing to address. It's just not sustainable. Commissioner Gonzalez, I know, his folks are out fighting fires and overdoses all the time. This is just, we are becoming the county and exiting our core mission as a city. And I think that's unhelpful.
Let me jump in here, because this is actually a great discussion, and I agree with both sides of what I'm hearing here. I actually think we're all on the same page. We are, in fact, pivoting city government to fill the void where other governments are either inactive or are failing in the proposals that they have put forth, because somebody has to do it and somebody has to be successful. So we have the safe rest villages, we have the task sites. We've created 500 shelters in something like 3 months, the majority of them just in the last few. We're on track to create additional shelter space. But most of what we do with Safe Rest, with the task sites, even the Street Services Coordination Center and the good work that we've been doing there, the outreach teams that we've developed throughout the Central City Core to try to connect people to services, they are all funded with one-time only funds that will not exist in the upcoming budget. Meanwhile, and I'm not casting aspersion on anybody, I'm just stating a fact, the county has so much money to address homelessness, they can't spend it. They're giving it back. They're defaulting on their ability to spend it. And we're sitting here like the little kid in the front row going, ooh, 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 pick me, because we have the ability to immediately utilize those funds in an effective way. Now, you're also right, Commissioner Mapps, that we not only have the 40+ million that goes to the joint office, but we have, I would argue, and I haven't counted, but I'm guessing several $100 million in additional expenses, probably as many as $200 to $300 million additional expenses on first responders, on cleanup, impact reduction, Portland Environmental Management offices, the Parks Bureau, the police, fire, Portland Street Response, which was created for the purpose of addressing a gap that exists in our state and our county mental health delivery system. And the crux of all of this, as you've both pointed out, is we don't actually get funding. We don't get SHS dollars at all. We don't get Medicaid reimbursements at all, because we're not the public health authority. The county is.
Yep.
And so, and then just philosophically, let's be honest here. A lot of our colleagues at the state level and the county level do not agree with us that we need to keep our public right-of-ways clean and safe, which is a core obligation of city government. And personally, I believe it is humane to have people not live in the middle of high-traffic corridors. And we've had to resort to executive directives in order to clean our safe routes to school, to get people out of dangerous areas. And the ADA lawsuit, I mean, when's the last time we all got sued and we agreed with the lawsuit? And it was the ADA lawsuit, because we're not doing right by our disabled community, our disability community, if we're not keeping those right-of-ways clear and free for them to be able to access them safely. And so I think it is right to raise the red flag at this point and say the good work that we've been doing at City Hall is in great jeopardy due to the lack of one-time only funding, which has largely been supporting our homeless infrastructure. And in the absence of the city investing in these strategies and being successful, who else is ready to step up? That's my question.
Well, it's the employees, it's our current employees at the city of Portland who will be laid off over the course of the next six months or so. You know, this half of the table probably spends a big hunk of their days at this point trying to figure out how to lay off, in my case, about 78 employees. Commissioner Rubio has something along these same numbers. These are choices we're making, and the choices we're making, the choices basically boils down to, in order to fill in for where the county has fallen down, we are going to get out of the road maintenance game and get out of the game of issuing permits. You know, this is the choice that we've made.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and that's why we also leveraged ARPA money for permits, and we kept BDS whole during that time. So I think we should be fair to say that we leveraged money properly, considering what the issues that we are facing as a city. And now we're providing proof points for Metro and for the county to do the right thing and support these for the long term. This is the long game. I think we're playing it well, and we need to stay the course. So I don't think we should pit PBOT layoffs with how we need to keep being the grown-ups in the local government to like move the needle forward for results. Should never use that word. Move the dial forward for what's going on our streets.
And Commissioner Ryan, I don't entirely disagree with your point. I think we have been a leader here, but cutting to the chase about the $43.5 million that we send to the county when we have these substantial, substantial obligations we've taken on, and in many cases, proof of concept. We've played well in the sandbox. We've been fair partners. It creates this incredible cloud, though, in planning for us as we go into a budget cycle, where we have funded a lot of these programs directly. Again, Portland Street Response, Safe Rest Villages, task sites, and we don't have a great deal of clarity as to what support we're going to get on an extended basis from the Joint Office on Homelessness. I wish we were in the place where we could say we're going to spend the $43.5 million on task sites and Safe Rest Villages and PSR right now, that we had that certainty and confidence going into the next budget cycle, because we have a myriad of other very difficult budgeting decisions to make. And so I appreciate your leadership, your patience, your collaboration with the county at times in really difficult conversations and working through it. But it continues to feel like we play this waiting game where at the end of the day, the city capitulates. And right now we need certainty where we can get it in planning and forecasting, because we've got so many things that are not certain. So I submit that when we're talking about this particular topic.
Yeah.
I agree that not every part of our Bureau's funding gaps are directly related to our investment in homelessness. I think there are some parts of carryover, and there are other parts that are distinct drivers of some of those pain points.
I mean, it's the one-time money that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the investment that we do at the county from our general fund. I'm talking about the ARPA investments. I think we utilize those in a very smart, innovative way, because we weren't getting any support from the county to deal with the reality of this crisis. And now we have proof points. I have faith that the new leader of the Joint Office understands this. I'm hoping that we can stay at the table and get a compromise not a compromise, an agreement that allows us to invest those monies locally on these issues now that the ARPA money is drying up.
I totally agree with you, and
the data is still a big deal. 3 years ago, I brought that to the county. They've been very slow to implement it, but all of these suggest data points, and all of them have sub-indicators connected to the poisonous drug crisis. It's literally killing Portlanders every day, and that's the biggest issue facing our city right now.
Here, I know we probably want to move on from this slide. I might use this to pivot back to the budget office staff. I think I understand what you're broadly trying to do, move us from program-based budgeting to outcome-based budgeting. That's great. I support it. I would also point out, based on the discussion we've had today, implementing outcome-based budgeting in the context of housing and houselessness strikes me as a complex task, especially in the Portland metro area. So I will look forward to seeing what you folks were able to come out with, and certainly while we're in this building, I'll be helpful to try to get you there.
Can I offer one other historic point on this? And it's as much a question as an observation. While there are certain responsibilities related to behavioral health that are clearly by statute under the county, my one caveat on this is that the city has long been involved in some form of shelter. I mean, that's not a new development.
Yeah.
I recognize that it has exploded in recent years, but I don't want to take away from the thrust of this conversation, which I wholeheartedly agree with. The city is cleaning up messes not generated at the city right now, and that is state level drug policy, that is lack of a strong behavioral health in the state, and some real challenges in the way the county has approached the houseless problem. I agree wholeheartedly with all of that. My one caveat here is that I do think the city has always had some responsibility with respect to a component of shelter, or at least it long has, and I'm not sure that we ever get completely out of it. It's just we're in extreme times where what used to be a relatively minor burden has exploded.
Commissioner Gonzalez, that's my understanding of history too. Although just because we have a tradition of it, I don't think that necessarily makes it good practice. And to just make it explicit, I think historically the city of Portland has tended to be more engaged in trying to house single men, and the county has been more engaged in trying to house women and children. And we all support that. Historians might go back and ask themselves why the county has been not so interested in housing single men. I don't know. I think I have a sense of what the answer to that question is today, and I could speculate on what the answer to that question was 20, 30 years ago. I'm not sure that I would find the answers to those questions in the past or today to be particularly compelling, given how the dollars flow, frankly, from the feds and the states. I don't think this ever made sense.
All right, great. Well, I'm going to move us on to the last area, which is livability. So there was a lot of alignment here, as you can see. The top ranked one was improving the cleanliness of public spaces, and then just below that was improving the conditions of roads, streetlights, and sidewalks. So I don't know. Obviously, there's quite a connection between this area and the housing and homelessness area, which we just had good discussion about. But is there anything else folks want to comment on with regards to livability? We can also bring up, Lillian, the insight slide here. I did think it was notable that, so this is a question from the Portland Insights survey about satisfaction with city services, and you can see that there's there's quite a bit of dissatisfaction around the cleanliness of streets, sidewalks, and other public spaces, and then the quality of roads, streetlights, and sidewalks, and much more satisfaction with garbage recycling and composting. And your responses to the survey, which we can flip back to, align with that pretty closely. So it made me wonder if the feeling reflects kind of what Portlanders said in the Insights survey, which is that these are the areas that need the most attention. It's not that the other areas aren't important, but that they don't have quite the immediacy of need that the top two ones have. Any comments?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
And the thing I would add here, and I don't know, are we getting where we are in time? Can we go to the slide that you just showed us, the citizens' view of this? This is all very helpful. Although it might for me, I think it might make sense to go through this exercise, but break it down actually by revenue source. You know, the cleanliness in Portland streets is kind of a different question, at least currently, than cleanliness and or the quality of garbage and recycling and composting. You know, those are very much two different budgets in terms of where the revenues come from. I doubt, you know, people's garbage bill is going to, part of the revenues generated from our garbage bills are going to go to cleaning up the streets or whatnot. So that might be bring some intellectual clarity. I recognize you're also trying to get us to kind of step back and look at the big picture, but I don't think we're quite yet to the point where the color of money no longer matters.
And that also goes back to what's been discussed repeatedly during these deliberations as who's responsible for these services, and being careful to be clear about what the city's responsibilities are in these areas versus other organizations.
Great. Any closing comments overall on any of these areas or the survey before Tim talks about next steps?
Yeah, I'm curious, Mayor, what are we looking for as the goal of this conversation? I think the conversation so far has been really good. It's allowed us to have some clarity on what we did, what we responded to, and but what's the goal of this?
Yeah, so I'll let the budget office answer the way they want to, but I'll answer from my perspective. What I was hoping to see is what I have largely seen, which is an alignment of our core goals. And that's obviously helpful from a budgeting perspective if we're in significant alignment on the core service areas, the core priority areas. And we definitely benefited from that last year. I see us benefiting from that again.
No,
So
I appreciate
this
that.
for me is just a reality check. Are we still on the same page? And
Mayor-
my one word answer is yes, we are.
Yeah, and you were the only one here when I brought it up when we were doing the bump vote, the famous bump vote in October of 2020. And I just was the new guy, like, what are we doing? Like, what's our priorities? As opposed to just looking at a line item. And what I appreciate is that we've taken that question and it keeps getting deeper and deeper. And so we have more collateral here to go deeper and to make some tough decisions on streamlining priorities.
I appreciate you facilitating this. This has actually exceeded my expectations in providing clarity, and where we have alignment, where there may be some dissonance. There continues to be this interesting overlay of where the community says we need to be prioritizing, where we think we need to be prioritizing, but it may be outside of our, traditional explicit charter obligations. And I think that is something we may want to kind of tease out. I don't know exactly how to do it, but just sort of, everyone's saying this is a priority for the city, but our role in it is about 5%. It's just a thought. But again, I appreciate this. This is certainly exceeded what I thought we'd get out of today.
So with that, you want to see that exercise with continuous improvement where you look at your influence and control?
Yep. I mean, I whether we frame it with that precise framing, but that's what we're getting at. What part
It's
of this?
about getting to impact.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to echo what folks are saying about this has been very helpful to and crisper about where our alignment is and those points of separation where we are. But, really it's just in some cases degrees, but others are a little wider. But I want to get back to Commissioner Ryan's point about continuous improvement. I think it's a good one. Just even over the last couple of years, we have become more sharply focused on where we need to go. So I just want to lift that up, that's something I see the real impact of since my time here. So thank you for doing this, and thank you, Mayor, for
I want to
leading us
add that I know in the areas that I've touched when it was permitting, I asked and pushed for data sets, been pushing for that in the homeless space, definitely doing it with the villages. And I think until we have a commitment that we measure everything, we're never going to really do this exercise well. And it's going to take a while. It's not in our culture at all. I don't know why, but it's just not. We're behind a lot of enterprises. We're calling ourselves an enterprise. Well, an enterprise definitely uses data, but they really make sure it's real time. And you do what was mentioned earlier. I call it the Plan, Do, Study, Act, repeat rinse, Plan, Do, Study, Act. So until we get into a culture like that, it's going to be hard for this to ever be a reality. And building that culture takes a lot of push.
I suspect this might be your next slide, but I'll build off of Commissioner Ryan's point. Obviously, outcome-based budgeting implies both setting some goals and actually measuring what we're doing. And I agree. I think that even when we do measure, well, what do I do? What do I think here in this space? Even when we gather data, I think we're not particularly effective at analyzing data. I would say we don't even really try to analyze the data that come in, which is a real problem with outcome-based budgeting, because there has to be some theory behind how your actions actually change things in the real world. And frankly, those theories are in the city space radically underdeveloped for the most part. I'd like to see us do much, much better in that space. You could almost think of the entire city as being an asset to manage. We over in water and environmental services, we have pretty fancy robots and computers that kind of talk about the relation, or help us think about and predict the relationship, or when a pipe is going to break or something. We got nothing like that in the public safety space, or the economic development space, or frankly, even in the climate change space.
Yeah, I'm going to hand it over to Tim to do next steps, but I appreciate both of those last comments, and this is a multi-year effort and transition, and it will continue to be so, as we go into the new form of government. But I think, at least in our office, we've been collaborating with a lot of bureaus who do performance analysis across the city, and I think there's a lot of, we've been trying to help folks transition into more of a logic model framework for performance measurement, and thinking about what are the goals we're trying to achieve, and things like, what you all just did today is really helpful for us, because then we can take it back and say, all right, this isn't perfect, but here's a starting set of measures that we can work from. Now, how do your measures connect to these goals? Obviously, these goals don't reflect every single thing we do in the city, and bureaus are going to have lots of data that they track for their own purposes that don't necessarily, tell a story about how we invest our resources. But what we're trying to get to is some kind of a logical connection between, we spend X, we get Y, and that leads to Z, and Portlanders, are whatever Z is, that's the impact for Portlanders. And how are we getting from X to Y to Z? We need data to tell that story. And in some cases, we have pretty good data pipelines. We need to just make the story better. And in other cases, we have no data that tells a story. And so it's kind of, we're doing all of that at once, which is why it's going to be a multi-year effort.
It's how we operationalize it. It's how we use it in our meetings with our employees on the ground. So it has to keep bubbling up also from the workforce. And it's the sub-indicators that really are important, because otherwise it's like watching paint dry. So there's something below the big community-wide indicators that we're barely tracking, and it's getting the culture to know that data is a motivator. It keeps the team focused. It allows you to ask the questions why, and be in that why, and then bring creative solutions from people who are closer to the work. So until we start to build that, it's going to be hard to see the culture improve and the customer service of our city employees and county employees improve.
I don't want to belabor that point, but one of the questions, as much for my colleagues and really for you all, is as we tie kind of the best we can discern strategic priorities and map that with budget without a true strategic plan at the city level at this point in time. That's certainly an exercise widely utilized in the for-profit, nonprofit world. But the question I have is sort of, well, but we're a political body, and you'll have a new council in January 1 of 2025, a new mayor January 1, 2025, with their own sets of priorities. And how do we build a system that operationalizes our strategic and budgetary priorities as articulated at this point in 2023, but that allows the necessary fluidity that comes from being a body that is governed by electeds that are accountable to the general population. And it's just synthesizing kind of these two parts of our reality. And, you know, I'll give you examples. I walk in as the new commissioner and walk in with my sense of priorities and where I want us to spend, you know, what I think voters just told me and told us. But we're also in the midst of executing on the priorities of a prior council, you know, in real time every day, including, and the same will be true for the next council and the next mayor. And so it's just I don't know that I have any prescription. It's a question I've been kind of pondering as we apply this discipline, both in strategic planning and in budgeting, that how do we make space for fluidity that's necessary in a democracy?
Well, I think you've outlined the long-term challenge here, that we have a strategic plan of some type going forward that's addressing real problems, real priorities, so that when we do have a new elected official come in, or we do have a new council coming in, which is going to be going through this transition, that can be carried forward in some respect until they have the time to do what you did today and engage in your discussion of priorities. And frankly, that was what the forum was for today, was to give you an opportunity to talk about the priorities of the past, confirm that those are still priorities, but also to give you an opportunity of new priorities perhaps. And the other purpose was to try to drill down a little bit more using outcomes to get a little bit more specific about what we're trying to achieve with those priorities in the next budget process, at least, and in years beyond. And I think you accomplished that today. So that might be a good segue to going into next steps, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
I'll just talk very quickly. It's been a long session here today. Can you go to the next thing that you'll be seeing, and probably by the end of this week, will be the mayor's first guidance memo. This will be very general about how we're going to proceed with the budget process. It will address the priorities that you discussed today, but just kind of laying out some guidelines for how we're going to proceed in the budget. It'll also have the budget schedule in there and that sort of thing. I think you're accustomed to these guidelines in the past. So the guideline's will have a citywide perspective. It will address what we've talked about in terms of service area budgets. It'll provide more guidance on that. It will also address the financial issues that the city is going to have to deal with as we go through this next budget process. And it will have some guidance on the service area budgets that we've all agreed to do going through this next budget process. So again, that'll be coming out probably, we hope, by the end of this month.
Yeah, next week, not this week.
Okay.
Yes.
Next week, I stand corrected.
Perfect, good. Yeah,
Okay.
I
A
was
little
starting
more
to sweat
time on
through
that.
a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So that kind of covers the general portions of the budget guideline. Can you go to the next slide, please? You've seen this chart before, and I just wanted to get a little bit more detailed on what's happening between now and December. You can see the 2 work sessions that we just completed here, on the budget priorities. We will be doing what's called the Cal ordinance shortly, which is, I think we've discussed this before, we update the current appropriation levels of this year to the next year, bringing in inflation and that sort of thing. And also adding any things that the council has provided guidance on that needs to be included in those current appropriation levels. So you'll see that ordinance coming coming November 5th, probably next week as well.
This week, I think. Oh,
That's tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, thank you. And then the mayor's budget guideline, and I should have mentioned, Mr. Mayor, that this will only be the first guideline. When we go into the December forecast, when we have more information on the general fund, and hopefully more information on financial plans of the other bureaus as well, there'll be another guidance that comes out to deal with the reality of what our forecast looks like. And I've said before, and I'll continue to say until that forecast comes out, that I'm expecting the general fund to have some very challenging financial issues going into this budget process. And that is consistent with our forecasts for the coming year that we issued last December, where we had a forecast of no one-time funds becoming available, and also we had obligated what recurring funds we already had to housing and Prosper Portland, and also the harbor dilemma. I hope I can come to you and say, wow, I was wrong, and we have some financial capacity to deal with some of the issues you've been talking about today. And then in December also, when the forecast comes out, we'll do our budget kickoff with all of the bureaus to lay out the guidelines that have been prescribed and how we're going to proceed with the budget. So that's a general overview of the budget process in December. And in December, we'll come to you with a fuller budget schedule with more detail.
Great. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Commissioner Ryan?
Mayor, we've done a lot of work in terms of setting up the organization chart. And within those work areas, we now have an opportunity to really do budgeting within those work areas. So will some of the guidance be around looking for streamlines and efficiencies?
Yes.
And if so, could you just say a little bit more about that? Because the consistency for all of our employees around this is important that we get that out sooner than later.
Yeah, Tim, do you want to take
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner. We will be putting in some guidelines to have, when we get into the service areas, that we're all going to need to be looking for efficiencies. We also have to deal with the next steps in the charter reform, the things that you agreed to in the organizational chart, how we're going to fund those things going through the budget process. So there'll be some guidance on that as well. And there'll be timelines for when that information occurs.
Thank you. Just trying to connect the dots from the many hours we've sat in these work sessions. Thanks.
Yeah, I see the council's role as critical within the service areas to help us with the trade-offs that we expect will inevitably be required.
And the ultimate goal is, as you go through your budget deliberations, that we're remembering all of these priorities and making your decision-making processes.
Yeah, and I also just want to put on the record, as in years past, different service areas may also have different requirements. There may be service area-specific guidance.
I appreciate that. One size won't fit all. Yeah. And you'll relay it with the overlap of the crosswalk it with the priorities.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor.
Quick question before we let the budget team go. Where in this process will we have more clarity about what our overhead model looks like?
That'll be in December as well.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Good,
just
thank you for bringing that up.
a little bit more specificity on that. So we will update the overhead model, and the updated overhead model as of right now, based on, well, after the vote tomorrow on the Cal ordinance, will go feed into the current appropriation level targets. So it's sort of, it gets rolled together, if that makes sense. So they will both, in essence, they will both be updated.
That'll occur after the Cal ordinance is approved and going into the December forecast.
Right.
Does council vote on the overhead model, or does council just get handed an overhead model?
We have, in our financial policy, we have directions on how to do the model. So you've approved those financial policies, so we stay consistent with that in doing the overhead.
Okay.
The items that are in the overhead cost pool are only items that have been already voted on by council, if that makes sense. So the overhead cost pool, the costs that are in overhead reflect things that have been voted on by council
And
already.
this
So
is-
either in the Cal ordinance or in the budget.
And I should note that this isn't something that CBO just develops, we work very closely with all of the other bureaus in developing the model. And we revisit it periodically, I think, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Well, I have a question for Commissioner Mapps. Was the nature of your question in a precise technical perspective in terms of the overhead model, or were you speaking more expansively on some of the assumptions that, I mean, specific to charter reform implementation? Obviously, we were just recently presented an org chart that has substantial new overhead spend and request embedded in it. And so I was just parse out where you were going with the question,
Well, yeah, I'll tell you,
which, by the way, we haven't approved, right? We approved the org chart, but we were pretty explicit. We have not authorized any positions set forth therein.
I'll be interested to have this discussion tomorrow. I'm not sure if we actually, with the Cal ordinance, I'm not sure if we're actually approving those positions or not. And I won't keep us late here to explore that, but that's something we should explore tomorrow. For folks, I'm speaking as the Commissioner of Public Works. I'll tell you, we have a pretty good sense of what our income for next year looks like. We don't know what our expenses are, especially our overhead expenses. I feel like I've sat in this room and have heard a couple of different proposals here where utilities might pay something like 66% of overhead for the city, which doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me. And so the sooner we get that question answered, frankly, for the Public Works folks, the sooner we can just kind of move into the future.
And when you say 66%, you're saying, I just want to make sure I'm following how you're getting there. That's based on the Cal that we're looking at tomorrow, or is that based on?
I think it's not the Cal tomorrow.
So the overhead model, for everything that's in overhead, the cost is roughly 43% general fund, 57% everything else. Now, within that, utilities is a portion of that 57%. I don't want to quote the exact percentages right here because I don't have it in front of me and I don't want to get it wrong. But it's not exactly, yeah.
So that proportion has already been set, the 57 you just said?
Those change every year based on the model. I mean, we'd be happy to come give you a little bit more information. It might make more sense to do it with our economist and have a little bit more information about the model.
That would be great, at least it would be great if you could come in. I'd like to have maybe our budget people from my 3 different bureaus in the room too. This is one of the things they just need to figure out so we can figure out staffing and whatnot. I'd love to have that conversation before the end of the year if you guys are ready to have it before the end of the year.
We're sensitive to their issue because what happens is we true up the overhead model as we go through the budget process. So when proposed budget decisions, or more importantly, the council's approved budget is approved, then we rerun the numbers. And sometimes they get surprised because something increased coming through the overhead model. So we understand that issue.
Thank you.
Great.
Can I ask a question about
Yeah,
overhead?
go ahead.
So throughout my career, this has been quite a lively conversation. When you raise money for an organization and you meet with funders, they want to talk about overhead. And what I found over the decades is that there's no clear definition. And so I think that we need to have that conversation. It certainly doesn't sound great when majority of our funds are going to overhead. So we just need to explain what it is. Like when we were looking at HR earlier, and we all know that we are having a really hard time filling positions because we don't have the infrastructure, it seems. And one could say that's overhead. One could say that's a service delivery to make sure that all of our other services actually are accomplished, because things get hung up in what one could term as overhead, or one could put them in a cost center that's not overhead. I just don't understand what the city's definition is, and I think we need more clarity on that.
Sounds like we need to come to the council offices and provide you information on how the overhead model works. We'll be happy to do that.
And for the public.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good presentation, good discussion. We are adjourned.